Good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Lionel Allen Jr. And on behalf of Resident Imam Tariq El-Amin, members of the Ta'leem Committee, Doctors Gloria Bashir and Aisha El-Amin, as well as Sister Rashida Fitzpatrick, I want to welcome you to today's Ta'leem. The topic is bridging the gap, moving from where you are to where you want to be. I thought it was appropriate for this time of year that today's Ta'leem focused on a concept similar to what we typically call New Year's resolutions. Somewhere between 20% to 45% of Americans take a vow of some sort of self-improvement goal. I know many of us as Muslims use the holy month of Ramadan as the time of year where we really sort of commit to self-improvement. But for the vast majority of Americans who subscribe to this idea of self-improvement and self-improvement goals, the beginning of the calendar year is where they often sort of make that commitment. And so today, what I want to talk about, inshallah, is how do we go from where we are to where we want to be. And I want to begin by just sharing my screen with you. I have a presentation for those who are on the phone and can't necessarily log in to Zoom via computer. I'm just letting you know that there is a PowerPoint slide that accompanies today's presentation. So we spend a lot of time, most of us at least, thinking about the goals that we want to set for self-improvement and thinking about how to accomplish the goals that we set. And so I take this quote from Earl Nightingale. Again, for those who can see the presentation, you can see exactly what it says. For those who cannot, I'll read it to you. It says that your problem is to bridge the gap which exists between where you are now and the goal you intend to reach. And so we know that this time of year, folks are setting multiple goals. Some are setting goals around weight loss or fitness. Some of us are setting financial goals. Some of us are setting time goals that are related to how we spend time with our families and how we sort of show up and be present with their families. There are a vast array of goals for self-improvement that folks typically commit to during this time of year. I want you to begin to think about self-improvement and goal setting from this idea of current state versus future state. So right now, where you are now is your current state. Where you are looking to go or grow towards would be your future state. And the gap between your current state, where you are now, and your future state, where you want to go, is really the focus of today's presentation. But beyond today's presentation, it's also the focus of a lot of our energy, our investment of time, and to be, totally honest, it's also a source of frustration, right? Like, how do we bridge that gap? What is it that we have to do? What actions do we have to commit to? What changes do we need to make in our day-to-day lives to be the people that we want to be? And we could look at it from a sort of, I'm just a, everyday, regular human being who, like other human beings that I interact with, have goals that they've set for improvement. Or we can look at it from a religious perspective, and we could talk about, what does this mean for our deen? What does this mean for, our commitment to becoming better Muslims? Whatever frame that you're looking through, whatever lens that you're looking through, the problem remains the same, right? It's what is it that you have to do to get better at whatever it is that you want to get better at? What is it that you have to do, for example, to lose that 15 pounds that you are desiring to lose? What is it that you have to do in order to become a better knower and understander of the Quran? Like, regardless of the problem, right, the framing of it remains the same, right? And once we figure out the actions that you have to commit to become the person that you want to be, right, the closer you get to accomplishing that goal. The harsh reality, though, is like there really is no there. So, for example, if your goal is to lose 15 pounds, once you hit that 15-pound weight loss benchmark, then you're going to want to lose another 15 pounds. And that's typically how it goes. And that's sort of the harsh reality of self-improvement, is that you never reach the plateau and say, I made it, I'm good, I don't have to engage in any more improvement efforts, right? That's just not how life works. But if we think about this from the standpoint of current state versus future state, right? The future state doesn't necessarily indicate a destination, right? It's a stop along the long journey that you are on, right? The future state is tomorrow. Like, how much better will I be tomorrow, right? When I look at and reflect on where I am today, how much better or more improved will I be next week? Doesn't mean that I've hit the destination. It means that I've made steps towards improving my future, right? So I like to frame it that way. Again, current state versus future state, because again, one of the things that we realize as we accomplish our self-improvement goals is that there is no there. One question that I want us to all be thinking about as we think about self-improvement, as we think about moving from where we are now to where we want to be, is what will your future self, let me frame it a different way. Will your future self be proud of the decisions that your current self are making? Right? Is your future self going to be proud of the decisions that your current self is making? Right. And so when I think about, for example, the summer, usually this time of year, everybody wants to get in shape. We talk about, preparing for the summer. In the summer, you can't wear sweaters and turtlenecks and cardigans to cover up whatever weight you've gained over the winter months. So most of us are thinking about that from a vanity standpoint. I mean, if we're being honest, right? We want to look our best selves when the summer comes, and we can no longer hide behind, hats and coats and sweaters and things of that nature. When I think about that for myself, I often say, once May, June, July rolls around, is my future self, is my May, June, July self going to be happy with the decisions that my January and February self made? Right? Like, is that May, June, July self going to say, man, February and January really stepped up and did everything that, they needed to do in terms of diet, in terms of exercise, in terms of rest to be, where I am today, so that I'm happy with where I am today, my May, June, July self. Right. So again, the question is, will your future self be proud of the decisions that you are making right now? If the answer to that question is no, then that's a signal that we need to start to do some things differently. So what I want to talk about today is just what does that mean? What does it look like to behave in a way or to think in a way that sets us up to be successful? Before I do that, though, let me say this, because I want to absolve us of a couple of notions that we sometimes carry with us that undermine our ability to get better at who we are. The first is your ability to accomplish your goals is not a function of talent or manifestation of talent. A lot of times when we see people who have accomplished the things that we seek to accomplish or have accomplished more than we think that we've accomplished, we attribute it to talent, right? And that's absolutely not the case. Talent may play some role, but ultimately your ability to accomplish the goals that you set out to accomplish comes down to two things: commitment and discipline, right? And having said that, though, there's no such thing as people who just are more disciplined than others, right? Like, you aren't born more disciplined than your colleague. You're not born more disciplined than a friend or a family member. What we find is that people who exhibit attributes that we associate with discipline make decisions and are very strategic about how they live their lives. Right? They are planful and they are thoughtful about engaging in behaviors that set them up to accomplish the goal. Doesn't mean that they are any more disciplined than anyone else, right? It just means that they have made a commitment to taking actions in ways that others haven't. And a lot of times, those actions are manifestations of their mindset and how they are approaching this improvement effort. So I want to start off by just sharing a couple things that when we think about moving from where we are now to where we want to be, that are essential in helping us to walk that journey successfully. So the first thing, you probably have heard this before. I'm not saying anything new or earth shattering here, but this idea that any sort of improvement effort begins with setting realistic and very specific goals, right? And I use the word realistic on purpose because sometimes we set goals that we know in our hearts are not realistic or attainable, right? Like if you're not a millionaire today, it's not likely that you're gonna be a millionaire at the end of this month. That's an unrealistic goal. I'm not saying anyone has set that goal, but I know folks who will say things like, it's January 7th, 2024. I'm going to lose 50 pounds by June. That's not realistic. Is it possible? Maybe. Is it likely? Probably not. It certainly isn't realistic. And what you would have to do to accomplish such a goal is probably unhealthy and could potentially put you in a bad way. So again, we want to set very realistic goals. We want to set goals that we know are achievable. And it doesn't mean that we don't challenge ourselves, but it means that we are realistic and that we are mindful of who we are. We are mindful of our liabilities, our personalities, our dispositions. We are mindful of the context and the environment that we live in. The second piece to this is specificity. It's super important that you set specific goals. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples that are not specific enough, right? So this idea that I want to live a healthier lifestyle. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a reasonable goal to set. But in reality, this is an example of a poor goal. One, because it's not specific. Two, because it's not measurable. Three, because it's not time bound. Right? You're not defining in the articulation of this goal, what does it mean to live a healthier lifestyle? Healthier lifestyle can mean a million different things to one individual. It can certainly mean different things to different people, right? So when we think about setting a goal around health and fitness, we may say something like, I am going to commit to drinking a half gallon of water every day. Like that's a goal that we can set that puts us on the path to better health. That's more specific than I want to live a healthier lifestyle, right? We may say something like, I want to lose 10 pounds by the end of February. It's realistic that is something that you can actually accomplish, right? You set a very targeted, specific number that you're trying to reach, i.e. the 10 pounds. And then you set a time by which you want to reach your goal by. So by February 28th, I want to have shed 10 pounds, right? That's a realistic, that's a time-bound goal. It's a specific goal that gets you closer to this sort of broader goal idea of living a healthier lifestyle, right? I know I've said this on multiple occasions. I want to be a better Muslim, right? As Muslims, this is something that we are all aspiring towards. But it's not a very good goal, and it doesn't help us to get from where we are now to where we want to be. What does it mean to be a better Muslim, right? For some people, being a better Muslim than they are today means that they make at least one salat a day. But for some people, that's a step in the right direction. For others, it may mean that they are reading Quran 30 minutes when they wake up every morning. Right. So again, when we are thinking about how we go from where we are now to where we want to be realistic. We want to be very specific, and we want to make sure that we're setting goals that are attainable, that are achievable, and that they're goals that we can communicate to others that make sense. And so if I say to someone, I want to be a better Muslim, they're not going to quite understand what that means. They're gonna make some assumptions about what that means. Right. They might assume that means I'm going to try to come to Jumu'ah every Friday. but that might not be what I'm thinking about. And so as you're thinking about setting a goal like this for self-improvement, again, you might say something like, every morning for the next 30 days, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to read Quran for 15 minutes. It may mean something like, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to commit to making, every prayer on time. Right? That's something that's measurable. Something that, once you hit the target, you can celebrate the fact that you've accomplished what you set out to accomplish. It's not abstract or vague. It's also important that we set more specific, more targeted goals, because it's important that we are celebrating ourselves when we hit the mark. Right? You never really know if you have become a better Muslim unless you are clearly articulating how you're defining the word better. But I know at the end of the week, if I read the Quran for 15 minutes every morning, and I can celebrate, I can say, I hit the mark, I did it. I know at the end of a 2-week span, if I've made all of my prayers on time, like I know when I hit that mark and I can celebrate it. Oftentimes, one of the things that undermines our ability to improve is that we set these big, audacious, unrealistic goals. And then when we don't hit the mark, we feel bad about ourselves. And then we give up. Right? The target was unclear to begin with. But we are unfair to ourselves when we don't articulate a goal with specificity, with clarity. Right? I want to have muscles. Okay, what does that mean? I've been going to the gym for 2 weeks. I don't have any muscles. I've been going to the gym for a whole month. I don't have any muscles. I feel bad. Guess what? I stopped going to the gym. I've undermined my journey to self-improvement. So I can't articulate enough how important it is that when you are working on yourself, when you are trying to improve, when you want to be better, when you want your future state to be better than your current state, I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you are specific in your language around how you are defining that improvement. Because if you don't, again, what ends up happening is you won't hit the target because the target is too abstract. You're going to start feeling bad because you haven't hit the target, because you haven't, in your mind, achieved success. And then you're going to disengage from the improvement effort. And you'll be right back where you started from. Which is why so many of us, year after year, we're setting the same self-improvement goals. And I don't say that to shame anyone. As a matter of fact, as I'm saying it, I'm actually talking to myself. I set the same improvement goals. I'm going to lose this amount of weight. I'm going to get my body fat down to this percentage. I'm going to read Quran this amount every day. I'm going to learn a surah, right, by next Ramadan. Like the same goals. But if I'm not hitting the mark, then that should be a message to me that I need to do something different, that what I've been doing, that the processes that I put in place to situate my life in improvement and the accomplishment of things that I've set out to accomplish. If I'm not accomplishing those things, that means that I need to rethink how I'm framing my approach to accomplishing my goals. I need to sort of rethink and reassess how I'm approaching self-improvement. Right? The hardest work that you will ever engage in your life is always self. Like we are great at identifying what others need to do to change. We aren't always as proficient or willing, for that matter, to identify the things that we need to change. And again, making sure that you are on a path to self-improvement first requires you to be open and honest with yourself and identify and acknowledge when things are working or not working. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. Again, another example of a bad goal that I want you to stay away from. I want to save more money. You can simply improve this goal by articulating how much money by when. And again, being honest with, well, how much money can you realistically save? I was having a conversation about this very goal not too long ago with someone, and I said, "Hey, how much money do you think you can save?" And like, I think I can save $600. All right, well, how much do you bring home a month? About $800. All right, you bring home $800 a month. Can you realistically save $600? Are you not going to eat? Are you not going to pay rent? Right? You're not going to live like that. That's not realistic. So again, let's make sure that as we are setting goals for ourselves, that we are having those goal setting conversations within the context of our lived experience around what's real and what's not real. The second kind of piece of advice or guidance that I would offer as it relates to setting self-improvement goals, going from where we are to where we want to be, is that you set goals that are important to you. It's important to acknowledge that you cannot um, change for other people. You can't improve for other people. I can't go to the gym to impress somebody else. Eventually, that's just not going to work. That's not sustainable. Um, I can't want to become a more faithful, a more committed and dedicated Muslim for someone else. Like that has to be for me. So as you think about setting goals, as you think about identifying the areas that you want to improve in your life, it's important that you be selfish, that you be self-centered, that you aren't thinking about improvement as it relates to how it can help someone else, right? You have to be thinking about improvement as, how is this going to help me become the person that I want to be? How is this improvement goal going to help me become my best self? Because when you are your best self, everything around you improves, right? You're going to be better at work. You're going to be a better spouse. You're going to be a better parent, right? There isn't an aspect of your life that's not going to improve when you are your best self, but you don't make a commitment to becoming your best self for those other things. You make the commitment because you know it's what's best for you. And it's hard sometimes to be selfish, right? And I'm really speaking to my sisters now, who oftentimes, when they think about the things that they want to improve, they always, almost always think about the ways that they want to improve as it relates to how it's going to benefit someone else, because they're givers by nature, they're caretakers and nurturers by nature. But we have to sort of flip the nurturer switch off, right? And think about, how does this benefit me? How am I going to get better? How am I going to feel better about myself? When I look at myself in the mirror, how is this self-improvement goal going to make me happier about the person that I see reflecting in that mirror? When I, lay my head down on the pillow and I close my eyes and I'm reflecting on my day, how is the commitment to this self-improvement goal going to put me at ease before I begin my rest, because I feel good about what I've done, not because of how it benefits someone else, but because of how it's benefiting me. And that's any goal you can think of, whether it's a weight. If you're trying to lose weight for somebody else, don't do it. It's going to be a waste of your time, right? If you're trying to, you want to be more knowledgeable of the Quran and more knowledgeable of Al-Islam to try to impress the brothers and sisters at the masjid, then that's the wrong goal. Find something else. That's not why we should be committing to self-improvement efforts. Again, it's about us. It's not about others. And sometimes it's hard to remember that as we embark on the journey of self-improvement. Those things will get better, right? But they'll get better organically, right? Change starts with you. And so you cannot, because it's going to require your commitment, not anyone else's commitment, right? It's going to require you to get up early and make Fajr prayer, right? It's going to require you to get up earlier to read the Quran. It's going to require you to get up earlier or stay up later to go to the gym. Like, it's about the commitment that you are willing to make. So if you aren't setting goals that are important to you, then that commitment is not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be sustainable. Setting realistic expectations is another piece of advice that I give folks when we're talking about, self-improvement. And you may be wondering, like, what gives me the license to be able to give folks advice? Like, who am I to offer any sort of tips around these kinds of things? And I'll say, I'm one of you, but so that doesn't make me special. But I spend a lot of time coaching leaders as part of my work. And so I work with folks who are responsible for leading schools and leading school districts. And a lot of times when we're talking about an improvement, the folks that I work with immediately start to talk about all the things that need to be fixed in their school, or all the things that need to be fixed in the school district. And I have to remind them that improvement almost always starts with them. All right. And so this idea of having realistic expectations about the things that they can get better at, the things that they're willing to commit to, it's okay to say, that sounds great, but I can't commit to that right now. This is not the right time. There's no shame in being honest and forthright with what's realistic and what's not. Right? Shame will come upon you though if you set an unrealistic expectation and you don't meet it, because you're gonna feel bad about yourself. That's just how it works. Right? So again, I always say start small. Start small. Right? Like you can't save $20,000 unless you can save $1. Some of us have a hard time saving $10, right? So a goal of $20,000 is totally unrealistic, right? Start by saying, I'm just going to save $75 a month, and then I'm going to save $100 a month, and then I'm going to, gradually, very deliberately, right, increase the rigor of the challenge. Right? Because once I know I get comfortable with saving that $25 a month, now I know I can save $30, and then I can go up to $50, and I can continue to improve. Right? And that's why I began by saying that there is no there, that once you hit the mark, you always are going to want to move beyond the initial benchmark. That's really how improvement becomes a part of your identity. Right? You're never satisfied with just hitting the mark. It's not about hitting the mark, it's about exceeding the mark, because you're on this constant quest for continuous improvement. Right? I'm not just satisfied with having memorized 2 surahs of the Quran. I want to now read. I want to memorize 5. Right? And then once I memorize them, I want to be able to say them in Arabic, fluently. Like there's always something that we can add on to the improvement effort to increase the rigor of the challenge. But we want to start with something realistic. We want to start with something realistic. And again, oftentimes we forget that it's okay to be honest, that these self-improvement journeys it's about you. You have to first be honest with yourself. It's not about impressing someone on social media or impressing someone that's in your friend group. Like none of those things matter. Are you impressed with yourself? Are you satisfied with where you are today? What are you doing to be further along tomorrow than where you are today? My youngest son is obsessed with baseball, something that he wants to do. He has a vision for where he wants his life to be, right? And he wants his life to be in the major leagues. And inshallah, he will achieve his dream. And it's my job as one of his parents to make sure that we do everything in our power to help him realize that dream. But right now, as a young man who's just turned 11, our job is just to make sure that he gets 1% better every day. Just 1% better. Right? He's not a major leaguer tomorrow. Doesn't matter how many hours he spends in the cage today. He won't be a major leaguer tomorrow. But if he works every day and gets 1% better every day, then at the end of this year, he'll be 3 times better than he was today at the end of this year. 3 times as better if he just gets 1% better every day. I think about this. Don't laugh at me. I'm going to be vulnerable here for a second. But when I stopped playing basketball, my college career ended, I was still eating as if I was playing and practicing. And, if you've ever lived with a college athlete, if you've been a college athlete, we could put some food down. And usually things balance out because I might be eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories, but I'm practicing 6 hours a day. So I'm burning up, all those calories, and I'm using that as fuel. But once I stopped playing, I just kept putting on weight. And at my highest weight, I was 315 pounds. Now I'm 6'6", so 315 pounds doesn't necessarily look like, horrible, I guess, depending on who you ask. But it was probably about 80 pounds heavier than I was in college, 80 to 90 pounds heavy. And so I was having a hard time making the transition. So I went to Weight Watchers, and Weight Watchers, one of the things that they taught us was, look, you got to lose 1 pound before you can lose 50. And when I accepted that, yeah, I was disappointed in myself for having, gained 80 pounds since my playing days. Once I accepted that, I wasn't going to lose 80 pounds in a week. It didn't take me, I didn't gain 80 pounds in 2 weeks. I wasn't going to lose it in 2 weeks. Right. But when I accepted the fact that I just had to lose 1 pound a day, it was liberating. It was liberating. That's all I got to do. I could do that. I could lose 1 pound a day. I could lose 1 pound a week. I can do that. That's easy. And then those pounds added up. And now, right, I'm 3 months in, and I've lost 15 pounds. I'm well on my journey now. Right. I'm well on my journey. So again, this idea of being realistic about what's possible. I couldn't set a weight loss goal. Actually, I'm gonna change my language here. A weight release goal. I learned this from a brother who said, look, when you lose something, you sort of imply that you want to find it. I lost my keys, right? I need to look for my keys and find my keys. No. You want to release your weight. When you release something, you let it go. Right. So I'm not going to set a weight release goal of 50 pounds in a month because that's not realistic. And I'm not going to meet the goal. And when I don't meet the unrealistic goal, I begin to feel bad about myself. But I can say at the end of the month, I'm going to lose 7 pounds. Right. I can say that's a realistic goal. I can say at the end of the month, I'm going to lose 5 pounds. That's a realistic goal. Right. And increases the likelihood that I achieve it. And once I achieve it, I now feel better about myself, which means what? I'm more willing to continue to do what I need to do to continue to lose the weight. It's a sustainable, realistic goal. I think it's important too that we ask ourselves again these two questions, right? What's possible and whether or not it's achievable. But it's also important to recognize that, this is what most people think success looks like, right? That it's linear, that as long as I do X, then, Y will happen. The reality is success looks like this, right? Which means that I'm going to have some good days and some bad days. Right? Just to use the weight loss example, because I think it's something that we can all resonate with, and we all sort of understand the battles of losing weight and keeping it off. Right? What this means is there's going to be days I get on the scale and it's going to look like I lost 5 pounds, and there's going to be a day that I get on the scale and I've lost 0.5 pounds. Right? Or there might be a day I get on the scale and I've actually gained weight. Right? I got to stay the course. I have to stay the course. Right? And so this idea that success is non-linear, that is messy, it's dirty. As you're thinking about setting these self-improvement goals, no, you're not going to change tomorrow. That's going to take you a while to become the person that you want to be. It took you a while to be the person that you are today. So to think that you're going to change overnight or in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even a month is unrealistic. Right? And if you set, again, unrealistic goals, more times than not, you're not going to hit the mark. And when you don't hit the mark, you begin to feel bad about yourself and feel like you aren't making progress. Right. So it's important that as we think about going from where we are to where we want to be, that we're thinking about these things with a dose of realism and honesty that sometimes are not a part of these conversations. You can't untether self-improvement from the messiness of self-improvement. It just doesn't happen. If it wasn't messy, it would be easy. Right? If it wasn't messy, it would be easy. We set a goal, we reach it. Right? Everybody be walking around their best selves, right? At their most ideal weight. Right? They would have accomplished all their financial goals. Right? Life doesn't work like that. And so we just want to be mindful of that. The third piece of advice or guidance relative to this topic of self-improvement is that consistency is better than intensity. Consistency is greater than intensity. And I'm going to show a quick video that I hope everybody can hear to articulate and underscore this point.
If you go to the gym and you work out and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing. And if you go to the gym the next day and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing. Clearly, there's no results, can't be measured. It must not be effective. So we quit. Or if you fundamentally believe that this is the right course of action and you stick with it, you commit yourself to an act of service. You commit yourself to the regime, the exercise. You can screw it up. You can eat chocolate cake one day. You can skip a day or two. But if you stick with it consistently, I'm not exactly sure what day, but I know you'll start getting into shape. I know it. Going to the gym for 9 hours does not get you into shape. Working out every day for 20 minutes gets you into shape. It's not about the events. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency.
So that's Simon.
If you go to the
Simon
gym,
Key is a well-known speaker and author. Talks a lot about leadership development, and he reminds us here that it's not about intensity; it's about consistency. And this is so timely in my mind because I'm somebody who goes to the gym pretty regularly, and I always have to chuckle uh, in the months of January and February when the gym is packed. I mean, it's like it's like a family reunion in the times 10. Everybody's back in the gym in January, February. Right? We've all set those fitness goals, those weight loss goals. I got to get back in the gym. And I'm always amazed at this constant pattern that I observe, and that is January, February, you can't get to an apparatus or a machine in the gym because everybody's in there. It's packed. It's like standing room only in there. You're waiting on the machine. Hey, can I jump in here and get a set in while you're resting? It's that type of crowd. By March, back to normal, right? Back to normal. The same people who've been in the gym for the last 15 years are the same people who are in there in March. All the people who set goals in January, February, or set a New Year's resolution that they were going to lose weight or, become more fit, right? If they were not prioritizing consistency, then you don't see those people after February. I used to be one of those people, right? I used to be one of those people. So it's not about working out one day a week for 10 hours. It's about working out 30 minutes a day for 10 months and watching how your body changes. Right? It's not about, I'm going to read the Quran for 5 hours today because that's going to make me be a better Muslim. Or I'm going to make all my prayers today, but then tomorrow I don't make any prayers. I only read any Quran. That's not going to help me become a better Muslim. Right? Becoming a better Muslim, becoming a more knowledgeable Muslim means that I'm doing something consistently every single day that's getting me closer to the kind of Muslim that I want to be. And as Simon says, that sounds funny. We sometimes get so enamored and encapsulated by the one intense event, thinking that if I do this one thing, my life is going to change. If I go to this 2-day financial seminar, when I walk out of there, I'm going to be rich. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Right? It doesn't work like that. We think about this idea of compound interest, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but think about compound interest. Right? Like I can put I can take $10,000 and put it in a savings account and it not make any money hardly over a 10-year period. Right? But if I put that $10,000 in a interest-bearing account where I'm benefiting off of compound interest over a span of 10 years, just consistently putting a little bit of money into it, over time, I'm going to double that initial $10,000 that I put in. It's not about the initial event of the $10,000 deposit. No, it's about the consistency of putting the $10,000 in, adding to it a little bit over time, not touching it, and allowing the magic of compound interest to do its work. It's the consistency over time that I benefit from, not the initial event. It's not the 5-hour workout where I'm ready to die at the end of that's going to help me become more healthy and more fit. It's the hour of 45 minutes a day that I commit to going to the gym every day. It's the 10,000 steps that I commit to achieving every day that's going to improve my fitness. It's consistency. Consistency wins the race. When you're watching a marathon, you don't see marathon runners, whether they are weekend runners or professional runners. You don't see them come out the gate sprinting. No, they have a nice, consistent pace, and they maintain that pace throughout the entire race, right? Anybody who starts fast and zips out of the starting line and is sprinting at the beginning of the race, they're going to burn out. By mile 1, they'll be done. right? So it's not about that initial burst. It's, do you have the discipline to maintain consistency over time, even when you don't see the results that you want to see? You might go to the gym 3 months and not see any results. But are you going to get down and quit? Are you going to say, you know what, something is happening to my body? I know it's happening. I feel better, right? I might not look better, but I feel better. And if I continue to do this, eventually I'm going to start to see the kind of results that I want to see. It's the consistency that matters. This next reminder, I think, is really important because I am someone who struggles with levels of motivation. There are times I'm really motivated to do something, there are other times when I'm not. This idea that motivation and inspiration are overrated, right? It's not about how motivated you are. It's not about how inspired you are. Those things don't lead to success. It's not something that people are necessarily born with. You know, I hear people say all the time, oh, you know, brother so-and-so, he's just a really motivated brother. Not all the time. Nobody is motivated all the time. Nobody feels inspired all the time, right? But it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's the consistency that matters. Are you going to be consistent even when you're not motivated? Michael Jordan wasn't motivated to go to practice every day, but he was committed to the act of practicing because he understood that practicing hard every day was going to help improve his game. Kobe Bryant, anybody who's great at anything, even the Shaheed children who are beautiful violinists, I'm sure they aren't motivated to practice. Maybe they are. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I'm assuming that they weren't always motivated to go to practice, right? But they were committed to the act of improvement. So they went to practice and they got better. And now they play a beautiful violin. Not because they were always motivated or inspired to do so, but they were committed to the consistency. Here's another video I want to show you that sort of gets to this.
This quote hit me in my chest. Usain Bolt said, I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds. People give up when they don't see results in 2 months.
Everybody knows who Usain Bolt is, probably if not one of the greatest sprinter, at least in our lifetime. All right. The importance of consistency and commitment. Think he was motivated every day to go train? I got to run 100 meters. I've been doing this for longer than 4 years, actually, if we think about it, right? But let's just take 4 years as the number. I'm training for 4 years. The longest that our race is going to be is 10 seconds. And that's if I run a bad race. 4 years to run 100 meters for a race that's going to last 9 seconds. I got to train 4 years for this. You think he was motivated and inspired every session? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So don't get down on yourselves when you don't feel motivated. I'm just not a motivated person. I'm not motivated. Okay, so what? It's not about motivation. We can't rely on our motivation to improve. It's not enough to sustain us through the process. We can't just be inspired. Inspiration wears off. Look, I'll speak about myself. When I go to Friday prayer, when I go to Jumu'ah, I'm amped up. I feel so good about being Muslim. I can pray all day. I can read the Quran all day because I'm in that space. I'm motivated. I just heard an outstanding khutbah. I'm around my brothers and sisters, and I'm inspired and I'm motivated. But guess what? When I leave the masjid, I'm back out in the world. And that motivation and inspiration has worn off. That inspiration and motivation has worn off. Now, I get just enough that's going to carry me through to the next Jumu'ah. And that's the beauty of Jumu'ah. It's a mercy for us. But I'm not going to fool myself into believing that motivation and inspiration is enough to carry me down the path I need to go down or just to be the kind of person I want to be. That's not realistic. No human being is constantly motivated to do anything. And so we have to be mindful of that and not use motivation as an excuse, or lack of motivation as an excuse to not do the things that we know are important for us. And that takes us to the last and most important point that I want to underscore, and then I'll be quiet and folks want to ask questions they can, and that is the importance of your environment. That the key to your success, the key to you achieving your self-improvement goals is the environment that you place yourself in. And Imam Zaki spoke on this at the last khutbah, talked about the importance of the environment that you are in. And I started to think about this within the context of community in Islam. And how, we talk about all of Allah's blessings and all of the mercies. And I began to think about the mercy of community. And that how Allah knows that simply saying your shahada, simply declaring your faith in al-Islam and Allah as the one and only God, simply declaring that is not enough. That the path for us to become better Muslims is contingent upon the environment that we put ourselves in, which is why we are commanded to come to Jummah every Friday. Because Allah knows best. Right? He knows that you gotta come to the center. You gotta come and be around your brothers and sisters. You gotta come to the house of worship. You gotta come and reconnect and get fired up and hear a good message. That has to become part of the environment that you put yourself in. Right? James Clear says that the environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. I remember growing up, and my mother and my father used to say, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Right? That was their sort of reminder to me to be careful about, who I hung out with and who I was associating myself with, because they understood that in certain environments, it's hard to do right. It's hard to accomplish your goals if you're not placing yourself in the right type of environment. So if I say in my shahada, if I declare my faith on Friday and I'm back at the club on Saturday, it's going to be hard for me to accomplish my goal of being a good Muslim. If I set a self-improvement goal of reading the Quran daily and I don't have a Quran in my household, well, it's going to be hard for me to achieve my goal because my environment is not situated for that type of improvement. Environment is everything. Motivation wears off. Inspiration wears off. But if you are deliberate about creating the type of environment that's going to set you up to be successful, then you are more likely to accomplish your goals. Let's talk about how you can do that. One is automating good decisions. And if you're interested in a good book about this, then I suggest you read Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's a fascinating book. It's a good read. It's a quick read, and I think you'll find some meaning in it, no matter what your, what industry you work in, what you do for a living, your age, et cetera. All those things can be addressed effectively through the reading of this book. But he says, automate good decisions, right? Make it easy for you to make good decisions. What does that mean? If you're trying to lose weight, don't have your house filled with cookies and ice cream and soda. Because when you come home and you see all those things, it's going to be too hard for you to make a good decision if you are tempted by these other things. The name of the book is called Atomic Habits. I'll put it in the chat as well. Right? If you want to drink more water, purchase yourself a water bottle, fill it up, and walk around as you engage in your day-to-day activities with your water bottle in hand so that you are constantly having access to water to drink to increase your water intake. And then when you get thirsty, you're not more likely to then go get that soda, right? You're trying to eat better, take your lunch. Imam Zaki talked about this on Friday, right? He talked about how, when he didn't bring his lunch, it was hard to make the right kinds of choices if Aisha wasn't there helping to guide his decision-making, right? So if he had his lunch, though, hey, this is my lunch. I don't have to make a decision. I'm automating my good decision. I want to eat this salad that I prepared for lunch today. I don't have to make a choice between pizza and a chicken sandwich because those are only the two things that I have available to me at the cafeteria, right? Don't shop hungry. We know that there's actually been research on this, that when you go to the grocery store and you're hungry, you make bad food choices, right? You want to be more present and more productive, delete apps from your phone. Take the gaming apps out, delete the social media apps. That way, when you pick up your phone, you're not tempted by those things. Again, you're automating your good habits. You're automating good habits. You want to save money? Set up a system where you have automatic deductions, where the money that you're trying to save automatically comes from one account to the account you're trying to save money in. So you don't have to make a decision. You get paid, the money is automatically moved. You look up over time, you saved a great deal of money, and you haven't had to make a decision. You haven't had to engage in an active decision to save that money on your own because you've automated it, right? Those are things that we can do to help change our environment. The second point around changing your environment is getting it in the flow, meaning that you want to fit what you're trying to change in the flow of your current patterns. So if you want to work out every morning, when you wake up, lay out your workout clothes before you go to bed at night. No, make sure your gym bag is packed. Right? You want to read Quran first thing in the morning, make sure your Quran is somewhere close. So when you wake up, it's right there. It's a reminder. Oh, there's my Quran. I got to read my 15 minutes. You want to practice, learn how to play guitar? Place the guitar in a prominent place in your home so that when you walk in your room, bam, you see the guitar. You don't have to go find the guitar to practice. It's right there, right? These are things that we can start to do to change the environment that we are living in. And then lastly, you want to subtract negative influences, right? You want to be around people who have similar goals in mind, people who are seeking to improve, right? People who aren't satisfied with where they are right now. Right? Surround yourself with people who do offer some motivation. We know that that's not enough, but they give you just enough just to kind of get you over the hump. And then your commitment to consistency will sustain you through those other times. But it's nice to reconnect with someone and say, hey, man, I know you're trying to lose weight. Me too. You know, and let's misery loves company. Let's talk about how hard it is, but then let's talk about the things that we're doing to accomplish the goals that we set out to accomplish. Right? These are things that we can start to do right now to create the kind of environment that's going to set us up to be successful. We can't rely on motivation. We can't rely on TED Talks. Can't rely on inspirational speeches from other folks, right? We have to make sure that we are building the systems within our lives, within our homes, to set us up to be successful. James Clear, in his book, he says, look, forget about goals, focus on your systems. What processes are you putting in place that's going to set you up to accomplish what you set out to accomplish? Another way of saying it is a goal without a plan is just a dream, right? Like you're just talking. Sounds great. Yeah, you're going to do this. You're going to lose 75 pounds. You're going to save $1,000. You're going to, whatever it is you're going to do. If you don't have a plan, if you aren't trying to modify your environment to make sure that you are increasing the likelihood of success, then you're just wasting your time. And lastly, I'll say this. Any self-improvement goal comes down to, in addition to your commitment to consistency, the specificity of your goals, and your commitment to changing the environment that you are living in, it ultimately comes down to whether or not you want to step outside your comfort zone. And so I'll leave you with this. Comfort zone is a beautiful place where nothing grows there. We're creatures of comfort. We love to be comfortable. But if you aren't willing to push yourself outside your comfort zone, if you aren't willing to put yourself in a position that feels not only uncomfortable, but challenging and stressful and willing to give you just a little bit of anxiety, if you aren't willing to go there, it's going to be hard for you to accomplish your goal. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyway. I laugh at people when I see them on the treadmill and they can have a whole conversation with someone eating a slice of pizza at the same time. How are you getting better? How are you pushing your body? How are you conditioning your body when you aren't breathing hard, when you aren't challenging yourself, when you aren't pushing yourself? You see it all the time, and I get like the gym is a social place and not everybody's there to work out. I understand that too. But, it's just a reminder that we can't say that we're trying to get in better shape. We don't push ourselves to the edge of our own discomfort. And that's in anything. That's whether you want to be a writer, whether you want to be in better shape, whether you want to be stronger, whether you want to be more present with your family. Sometimes you being not present with your family is a function of it's not something you really want to do. You have to ask yourself, this really what I want to do? I much rather scroll Instagram. I'm more comfortable scrolling Instagram than talking with my children about their day because the conversation isn't always pleasant. Well, if you want to be there for your children, that might mean you have to step outside your comfort zone and engage in that uncomfortable interaction with your children, right? I'm speaking from experience, right? Those conversations aren't always pleasant. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. Sometimes it is easier just to scroll on your Instagram, but is that the kind of parent that you want to be? So all of these things, when we talk about improvement, all of it is rooted in your desire to step outside your comfort zone. Those who are, you're going to see the kind of improvement that you want to see over time. Those who aren't, you'll be having the same conversation, unfortunately, next month, in 2 months, in 6 months, next year. And that's not to shame anyone. I'm saying that as I'm saying it to you, I'm saying it to myself, right? That this is probably one of the most important aspects of self-improvement. Thank you all for your attention today. I really appreciate your time. We'll close out with Walasa, and then if we want to have some conversation after, we can certainly do that. Walasa. Inna sana lafi kusra ila ladina amanu wa amilu salihati. Watu wasab bisabr, watu wasab bisabr.